Hey there friends and enemies, JoPa here again, and today I've got another Destiny 2 Titan build for you guys. This one focusing on the newly buffed Void Sentinel Shield roaming super and the Doomfang Pauldron, which is one of my old favorites. But it also utilizes a weapon I don't see in basically any other builds that is awesome right now. It is so much fun. I am a big sucker for it, and I'm going to show it off in just a little bit. But first off, if you missed it, roaming supers recently got a buff, extended duration, and you get them back much quicker, especially when you pair them with certain exotic builds, including the Doomfang Pauldron. If you forgot, this has the armor perk Horns of Doom. Defeating targets with void damage has a chance to grant an escalating bonus to damage with void weapons. Defeating targets with void melee grants super energy. While Sentinel Shield is active, defeating targets with melee attacks recharge shield throw, which extends your super on hitting a target. So you can have, especially with the new Contest of Elders activity, which is very much an arena mode, you can have your super last for pretty much half of every round, and with you being able to rally flags, get different orbs of power, and have your other teammates using their supers as well, you can have your super all the time. It's pretty insane. And you pair this with something like the Vexcalibur, which I think glaives are honestly underrated right now, especially this one, because it does have the trait Perpetual Loophole. Deal additional melee damage while protected by an overshield. Defeating targets with melee final blows while the overshield is active will refresh it. So when I'm not using my super, I am getting an overshield and then using my Vexcalibur to take down a bunch of enemies and consistently refresh that overshield if I need to. I'm also using Mountaintop so I can weaken enemies, and then also something like Edge Transit. These two are pretty much flexible. You can throw on Ignition Code if you want to, or any other weapon. I do like Kinetic weapon for this because it's going to do a little bit more damage. Then we've got having the Void theme with the Edge Transit is fine. You can also use the VS Chill Inhibitor or something like that if you want to for something new and fresh. As far as the build goes, I am running the Sentinel Shield Super alongside the Shield Bash. Now, you could use the Shield Throw, but I just feel like Shield Bash, you're easily able to get kills, so that's why I prefer that. And then the old standard Vortex Grenade. Now, here's where you can change things up a little bit. I'm using Controlled Demolition because I love seeing the explosions, plus making enemies volatile is very nice for this build. You could also swap this out for Bastion, which is a pretty consistent option in these void builds. It's a bit more defensive, but I feel like you don't need it with the way this build works. Then also Offensive Bulwark. This is for that extra shield throw with a Sentinel Shield, and also while you have your overshield, your grenade charges significantly faster, and you have increased melee range and damage, and your melee final blows restore a small portion of your overshield and extend its duration. You see where I'm going with this build? Should be pretty obvious. Now I'm running the following fragments: Undermining for weakening targets, Cessation, or that's with my grenade, Cessation, which will allow me to defeating volatile targets creates a void breach. This is why it's important to have the controlled demolition, so I make enemies volatile all the time. Then we've got Echo of Harvest, so defeating weakened targets gives me orb power and a void breach. Again, with my grenades, I'm going to be weakening targets quite a bit. And then we've got Echo of Starvation, so picking up a void breach or orb of power grants Devour. So constant overshield, constant healing, and pretty nice damage as well. Then as far as the artifact perks, which are important, I am going to talk about the last column with the Supernova. So picking up a Void Breach causes your next source of void damage to create a large weakening pulse. Again, lots of void damage, so lots of void breaches and lots of weakening pulses. I'm also going to run kinetic impacts with this one, so that way I can stun unstops if I need to, depending on the activity. You could swap this out for Served Cold instead if you would like to, or even something like Conductive Cosmic Crystal if you are using anything with stasis. But for me personally, I do like kinetic impacts now that it has been fixed. As far as the other perks, I am running the Debilitating Wave, so finishers will emit a damage wave, a Void, and then Concussive Reload, which is nice to weaken the champions or bosses. And then finally, Curative Orbs is nice as well. That's going to allow me to create more Orbs of Power, which is always good. The Power from Pain perk is also nice to have because rapid final blows against weakened combatants grants you Devour. If you don't get Devour from a Void Shard, then you can get it from Power from Pain as well. You want to be healing as much as possible, especially with an up-close range build where you're using a glaive like Vexcalibur pretty often. The Thick of It is the next armor perk I recommend. Rapid Impacts is also nice. You could run Overload, a Breachload Grenade Launcher, stuff like that. After that, it's kind of preference. Depending on the activity you are rocking, this could change up just a little bit. This build is specifically better for arena type activities where you have a small confined space with a lot of enemies, so you can use your super and just constantly extend it. That's where this build is going to shine and where you're going to want to use it the most. In something like a GM, it's not going to be as effective, but it will still be good. It'll still work. I've used it myself. It is still definitely possible. It's just not going to be able to shine as hard as some other builds. Whereas in specifically a mode like Onslaught or like the Contest of Elders, that's where a build like this, you can clear ads quickly, you can get your super back very, very fast, and you can just absolutely destroy enemies. As far as the mods go, Void Siphon, obviously very nice. Hands-on Special Ammo Finder. This is so you have additional ammo for your Vexcalibur. You can swap that out for the Heavy Ammo Finder if you're struggling with that ammo instead. Firepower and then Heavy Handed are also nice to generate some of those orbs. Damage Resist of whatever activity you're on, as well as Void Reserves, Better Already, Absolution, and Void Weapon Search. And then finally, Distribution Reaper and Time Dilation. Yeah, overall, this build is a ton of fun, and it really brings me back. This is the type of build I was using during the Gambit Prime era, and I absolutely loved it. It definitely brings me back to that era, because if you forgot, not only did we have Gambit Prime, but we also had Reckoning, which was an activity that was a ton of fun and was more wave-based, even though it was more linear, like you were constantly progressing forward, but there was always a bunch of ads present that you could use your super on and pretty much have it for entire waves. And that's something that is hilarious to me, and I absolutely love when I can just constantly spam my super. And I hope to do this with an arc build for the Titan as well, because I do feel like it is possible now that they've juiced up these roaming supers. And I'm really glad, because I feel like in a lot of activities they have been underwhelming for far too long. You get the one-off supers which just do tanky burst damage, which is really good for activities where you need to burst an enemy down, but also makes it so your options can be somewhat limited if the activity doesn't rely on you using your roaming super to keep enemies in check. This is a good option for that, especially if you have weapons that you can use to absolutely melt bosses instead. And that's where the mountaintop and the grenade launcher in your heavy slot of your choice really comes in handy, because I am running double special, as you can see, and it's possible because I'm not really spamming my mountaintop and I'm not spamming my Vexcalibur shots all the time. I'm using them as needed, and then because I get my super back so often, I can use that to farm some additional ammo as well, and it means I'm pretty much never going to run out. So yeah, overall, I'm very much enjoying this. I really am looking forward to making builds right now. I am having a lot of fun. I'll probably have a lot more PvE builds this week, and then with Iron Banner, maybe dip into some PvP stuff next week, potentially. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Like, comment, subscribe. As always, my name is Jopa. Have a good one. I'll catch you all later.